I hate to start off the podcast on a negative note, but I need to complain about something. Spotify Wrapped just dropped, and we're going to be talking about ours today. And unfortunately, I am missing 22,000 minutes of something that I listen to. And that something is podcasts, because now podcasts apparently don't count towards your overall minutes. So I am under 100,000 minutes of media listened to this year. And I can't believe it. I'm so sad. And I wanted to ask you, David, do you want to try to guess how many minutes I have listened to this year?
I'm trying to remember because I know you mentioned what it was earlier, the other day. I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. I want to say 68,000.
Very close. It's 96,349 minutes. 66 days of music, it says. So I guess you're closer there. But yeah, if you add in my 22,000 minutes, I'm very clearly over 100. So kind of sad there. And I want to guess your number. I feel like it was a lot higher than I thought it would be. So I'm going to go with 56,000.
It was not that high. It was 39,000.
Damn.
But my podcast listening, I think, was somewhere around like 11,000. So it was together like up there.
Pretty close, yeah.
It was in the 50s, yeah. I am also very annoyed at what they did. I want, it to be together. It just makes more sense.
Yeah, it has to be accurate, and they're taking away this accuracy. But they also, I don't think, counted the month of November. So, but we'll get into that later,
Well, and I'm annoyed that they don't count December either. But
right, exactly. Yeah, we should be doing Spotify Wrapped. Should be January 1st it comes out.
Literally.
$1 million idea right there. I think we should probably do that now.
And hey, Spotify, if you guys do that, you owe us money.
Literally, yeah. If your AI scrapes this episode and comes up with that idea seemingly on its own out of nowhere, just know that it was us, and we will be suing you.
This is David, as usual, joined by
Brandon, as usual.
That's right.
Yes, the co-pilot.
The co-pilot.
Had to bring it back for part 1 of our very special 2-part episode, our Christmas gift to all of you loyal listeners. We have to keep something secret from you, and you'll find out what that is at the end of this episode. Because we got a lot to talk about today. Not only do we have an album and a movie to talk about, we have 10 of each. So we should probably get into it shortly here. But first, I have to ask David, what have you listened to in the past year?
Okay, I'm going to start off with top artists, because I think that does just make sense. My top artist this year was the same one from last year. So you know who he is. The people that are listening to this, when I say the name, are probably going to be like, who? Because he writes soundtracks. So that's why he's my top artist. We've talked about this a lot. It's Nicholas Britell. If you don't know who he is, Succession and/or a bunch of other stuff. So that's why he's my top artist.
That makes perfect sense why he's your number 1.
My number 2, partially because of this podcast, but also because we have seen this person live in a concert. It's Troye Sivan.
Absolutely elite choice.
Exactly. I do really love his music. And it's mainly the album that we listened to on the podcast, plus the new album that we saw live during the Sweat Tour. So it's those 2 albums that kind of pushed him up there. My number 3, to go back to soundtracks, although he did write non-soundtrack stuff too, is Atticus Ross. But that's because of his soundtrack work.
I was going to say mostly off the strength of his soundtracks, I would assume, yeah.
And part of it is actually because of a movie we did on the podcast, Challengers, because he did that. And that is one of the best scores of last year. Or, sorry, the best score of last year, I should say. So that's why it's up there. And then my number 4, also kind of because of this podcast, but also kind of because of you, because you showed me a song from this artist like 2 years ago or something. It's Ariana Grande.
Nice.
Because I do think her Dangerous Woman album is very strong, even though I've actually not listened to any of her other albums yet.
Wow,
so
that's how good
Dangerous
Woman
of that
is.
one album.
That's crazy.
And that kind of ties into the next artist, my number 5 artist, because I have only listened to 3 by Banks, but the strength of the first part of that album gets her up to number 5.
This is impressive.
So those are my top 5 artists. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. I think next year is going to be a little more diverse because I kind of told you this, but I do want to start listening to more new albums and kind of going back and listening to the albums from artists that I missed. So I think it'll be a little more diverse. I also did want to say that I was kind of surprised that S.G. Lewis was not on here because I started listening to his new album last month, but I only really started listening to a lot this month. So if November isn't counted, that makes sense.
Yeah, true.
But now, do you want to tell me what your top 5 artists are before we get to songs?
Oh, sure. Yeah, why not? I'll tell you what I've listened to in the past year.
I'm excited.
So, my top 5 artists. I'm going to actually go in reverse order here. So, I'm going to start with number 5 is Aries. And hint, hint, I will be talking about him a little bit later in this episode. And about the album that somehow doesn't count for Spotify Wrapped because it was released in November. Anyway, I have a lot of complaints. I'm sorry. So, Aries was number 5. Number 4, of course, Charlie XCX.
Makes sense.
She's always here. She's been here for 6 or 7 years. Sorry, I did 6, 7 again. I cannot help it. This is not on purpose. I swear to God.
Time.
Yeah, it's such a natural 2 numbers to choose. You know, it seems like the perfect amount of years because that would have been 2019 or 2018. And Pop 2 came out in December of 2017, and I listened to her all throughout the beginning of 2018. So that's when I really got into her music. Anyway, track number 3, artist number 3 is Chase Atlantic, who I absolutely love. They're an Australian R&B trio, and I've wanted to do some of their music on the podcast before, but I've never found the right time to kind of slide it in, but we will potentially look at that next season. Anyway, I did not expect them to be here.
That's exciting.
But it kind of does make sense because their album came out in November of last year, and I was listening to it a lot. Artist number 2 is Hotel Apache, which makes sense. I've talked about them a lot on the podcast. And then my number 1 artist was Floor, an indie band from Oregon. They unfortunately lost another member, so they're down to 2 out of the original 4. So I don't know what their music is going to sound like. I don't think they even put anything out this year, but I was listening to, essentially they had 6 singles last year that were all amazing and seemed like they were going to gear up to be on an album or some kind of project, and they never did. And then one of the members left. But all of those songs were so good that I've been listening to them for the past 2 years. And then as I was moving earlier in the year, I was listening to them nonstop because their music is just very nice and kind of summery and happy most of the time. So yeah, those were my top 5. Now I want to hear your top 5 songs.
All right. So you guys know how I mentioned that I listened to a lot of soundtracks, and 2 of the artists on my top 5 artists were people who I listened to for the soundtracks. All 5 of my songs are friggin' soundtracks.
Oh my God. Are they all the same artist or not?
But no.
Okay.
They're all different artists. So at least there is like a variation. But honestly, next year I am hopeful that there are more like actual songs. Not that like it's not actual music, but just actual songs.
The one thing I will say is I kind of hope you don't have actual songs because I know you listen to soundtracks when you're writing, and I would like for you to continue writing a lot. So, you know.
That's true. And that's actually what I was going to mention, because looking through this, at least like 4 of these I do listen to while I'm writing. So that makes sense. So I'm going to start off from 5, kind of how you did. My number 5, and before I say it, there's a lot of credits for all of these because they are soundtracks. So I'm just going to say the title of the song and what like thing it's from. So number 5 is The Choice, written by Gustavo Santo Olalo. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. But it's from The Last of Us, the video game, the first one. It is very good. I haven't played the game. I haven't even seen the show, but the soundtrack is very good.
This is crazy.
It's crazy. Number 2 is Rocky Road to Dublin from Sinners. First person listed is Jack O'Connell, who sings it. I don't know if he actually wrote it too. You guys know I like the movie. I don't think it's amazing, but I do like it. That being said, the soundtrack is top tier. It's probably the best of the year. Number 3 is actually tied to one of the artists. one of my top 5 artists because it's a Willow World from the Shogun soundtrack by Atticus Ross, amongst others. Number 2 is Enlightenment from the 3rd season of The White Lotus, which is the weakest season, I'll admit it, by Cristobal Tapia de Veer. This, I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, this is not good, because they didn't have the little like do sounds that they have in the first 2 season theme songs, but it grew on me. So this theme song is actually goated, and I will fight anyone that says that it's not. And my number 1, which is a really weird one, and is only here because I listened to it while I was like plotting out a feature, is Join Hands from the soundtrack to Yellow Jackets by Craig Wedren and amongst others. A show that I've only seen the first season of, which I do enjoy, but it is like crazy to me that this is my top song of the year, purely because I was writing to it. But hey, that's the life of a writer. And now I want to listen to the top 5 songs of a life of a pop songwriter, or just a songwriter in general.
Number 5, 7 Times by Hotel Apache. I mean, they were on my artist list. Makes sense. I did not expect that to be the number 1 song by them. I thought it was going to be Rewind, because I've been listening to that song way more, it feels like. But this one did come out earlier in the year, so who knows?
Was part of it you listening to it in November, maybe?
I can't draw any conclusions from Spotify Wrapped anymore because I feel like some of it's wrong. I'm not like angry about it, you know? Like some people are like, I can't believe I listened to this. I'm embarrassed by my own music taste. I just feel like maybe some of these I listened to more, you know? But anyway,
yeah.
Track number 4 is Do I Keep You Up by K-Mo. Great song. Track number 3 is Wi-Fi, but it's also an acronym for When I Find It by Noted and Mercer Henderson. Also a great song. That's a perfect 5. Track number 2 is Painted by Floor, which might be one of my favorite songs of all time. And that's from that 6-song like drop from 2024. Very good.
Finally didn't say 6-7.
I was going to try to move past it, but unfortunately
I had to.
Yeah, I know. Track number 1 is Bounce Back to Me by Contra Dash, which I 100% thought would be my number 1 song of the year because I listened to it, I think, upwards of 10 times in one drive. I just put it on repeat and drove home from the grocery store.
That sounds awesome.
And it's really good. And it's under 2 minutes long too. So it's easily replayable. Great chorus. It's Southern California music, which I will be talking about later in this episode as well. That is my genre, which I will get into in a little bit. Maybe even right now, because I think it's time for us to get into our top 10 lists, right?
Let's do it.
David and I have both prepared top 10 lists. David, of course, of movies. Mine of albums. And before we get into our actual top 10 lists, we do both have honorable mentions. David has a note that he would like to share, but I'm going to talk before he can even say anything. And I'm going to tell you my 3 albums that are honorable mentions. So I'm going to start off. This is going lowest to highest, but I'm not going to give you any scores until we get into it. So this first album that's an honorable mention is called Choke Enough by OK Lou. Most of these albums I have brought up on the podcast before. I know I mentioned this one in like our first or second episode ever. This one was released February 7th by True Panther Sounds, and I wrote a little blurb about each album. This is a consistently good and close to great alt-pop album from start to almost finish. The final track is called Blade Bird, and it was the first song that I rated a 5 this year. This lyric sums up the song. I need you now, and I'll miss you when the wings I fell in love with take you away again. It's one of my favorite songs from the year, and I highly recommend it. And this album, along with the next 2 albums, are on here because they have perfect 5 songs on the album. That's how I decided to do my honorable mentions, not ones that I found from any other way of like, oh, here's number 11, here's number 12, this is one I thought was going to be on here. So I'm just going to mention ones that had moments that I thought were extremely special, enough for me to give them a very rare 5 out of 5. My second album that I'd like to mention is Stay Here Where It's Warm by Baby Girl, which was released October 9th by Arts and Crafts Productions. First of all, this album is extremely underrated and has barely any streams on Spotify, which is ridiculous because it has some of my favorite lyrical moments of the year. If you love indie pop and rock and the space between those 2 genres, this is one of the best albums to check out. Much like Choke Enough, it's incredibly consistent with one 5 out of 5 song. That song is track number 10, After You. It has maybe a top 10 hook melody, and the lyric is just, "Who could come after you?" It's both a love ballad to your sweet sweetie and a cry for help in case it goes wrong. How could you carry on after losing the love of your life? It's beautiful. So highly recommend that one as well if you like those kind of genres. And my third and final honorable mention, which I have, of course, mentioned before on this podcast, is Syndicate by The Midnight, released October 3rd by Ultra Records. We covered The Midnight on the podcast before, coincidentally in an episode also from October, and I gave this record praise back then. Ultimately, it is a lot of music. It is 17 songs, but I ended up loving almost every track on it. And for existing solely within the genre of synthwave, they've brought in a lot of influences and have kind of refined their sound. And of course, after 16 tracks and an hour and 18 minutes of music, yes, I counted, we reached the finale, Summer's Ending Soon, which is a perfect 5 out of 5. I talked about this song on the Birdcage and Maroon 5 episode as well, because it was released as a single, and it is truly beautiful. And if you like the Midnight album that we did, or are curious about synthwave in general, then I would recommend this album. And for anyone, I would recommend Summer's Ending Soon, which I believe is almost 7 minutes long. It's either 6 or 7 minutes. I'm sorry. Those are the two numbers that it's between. It is beautiful, though. Highly recommend. And now, David, what are your honorable mentions, and what is your special note that I know you have?
So yes, I do have a special note because when it comes to movies, there are a lot of movies that I did miss this year for various reasons. Either they haven't been released yet, even though if you look them up, it says 2025. Some of them will be released in December, which is after our cutoff point. Some of them had a limited release, so I missed them. Some of them I just missed in theaters because I was just busy. And then some of them are on streaming services that I don't have. Netflix.
And notably, the movies that are coming out in December, which is after we're recording this episode and before it comes out, these will all be eligible for next year because we are starting next year's list essentially today.
Exactly. So some of these will be included next year.
Yeah, as long as they're good as well.
As long as they're good, that's the thing. You never know. But because of that, I do just want to list some films that I missed, so that way you guys will not be like, oh my God, why wasn't this on his list? It was so good. Stuff like that. So I'm just going to run through these quickly. We have Hamnet, which I'm so sad I missed. I tried to fit in this weekend, but it just did not work. Train Dreams, Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, John Candy, I Like Me, It Was Just an Accident, The Mastermind, and Oh Hi. These are my honorable mentions, so here goes. And I'm going backwards. So my first is 28 Years Later, which is obviously a continuation of the 28 blank later series. I did like this film. It's a 4-star for me. It did get pretty close, but I did have my issues with it. I think it's not super cohesive. I liked parts of it better than I liked the whole, pretty much. But it did get close because it has been a very weak year. My next movie is The Smashing Machine, obviously from Benny Safdie, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I did like this film. I know this film was kind of a movie that a lot of people didn't like. I did like it. I thought it was very well done. Is it kind of by the numbers? Yes. Is it not exactly what I thought it was going to be and actually bring something maybe a little bit new? Yeah. And I liked it for that. And I also really liked Dwayne "The Rock." So this is another 4-star. It's not amazing. It's just a good film. My next film, before we get into our top 10s, is actually a movie that we watched together, Brandon, because it's Warfare. This is a film I did like. I know a lot of people talked about how it's kind of like propaganda for the army. I disagree because it made me never want to go to the army, which I never did, but it kind of reinforced that.
Yeah, I agree with that statement as well. It is terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying, and I never want to go to the army after that. So this is another 4 stars. Again, I think it's good. I don't think it's anything amazing, but I still did like it.
And for the record, I rated that movie a 3.5, and you can find that on my Letterboxd and David's Letterboxd, so we can just plug that right away early on in the episode.
So now I'm going to throw it to you, Brandon.
The star of the show, our top 10 list. I'm going to preface this with I gave ratings on here differently than I normally do. All of these albums are either 4s or 4.5s. Some of them are not albums and are just EPs, but that counts to me because it is a project of more than 3 songs. So I gave these scores out of 100, which is my preferred method. That is the album of the year scoring system, because I think out of 100, you can get more kind of variation between it. So instead, like an 80 and an 89 would both be a 4 for me. And these albums are all going to fall in between the margin of like in between the numbers. So I had to have some way to differentiate them. But we're going to start it off on a technicality, and I will explain that in a second. Number 10 is My Star Deluxe Edition by Junior Varsity. It was released June 27th by Key Records, and the original non-deluxe version was released November 8th, 2024. This is 8 tracks. It is 20 minutes long. Should this album count for this year is a debate that I was having with myself. And ultimately, I decided that even though the deluxe version only adds 2 songs to the EP, it is enough for me to replace the original as the primary version that I will be listening to again. And the EP makes the list off the strength of its singles, Cross the Street, New York, and Give My Heart. I followed Junior Varsity back when they were just a duo of Zach Michel, I don't know if that's how you say his name, and Greg Vardaresian. Shout out Armenia.
Hell yeah, shout
Boom,
out.
Beat you to it. Shout out Jennifer.
God damn it. I hate you so much right now.
Yeah, I was waiting and I was hoping you wouldn't say anything because I knew I had this planned.
Look at you.
So anyway, they took a hiatus and came back with a third member, Brooke Danaher, and a more direct indie pop and bedroom pop style, which has been something that I didn't even know that I needed from them. This EP is built on the band's ability to create memorable moments that feel both triumphant and intimate, and they have an ear for some of the best melodies of the 2020s. The whole EP recalls memories of where indie pop was in the late 2000s and early 2010s, which I've talked about how much I've loved indie pop from that era. This is the perfect EP to soundtrack a coming-of-age movie, and I would recommend it for fans of the band Phoenix, Passion Pit, Still Woozy, and fans of the ethos of late 2010s bedroom pop. My favorite song is New York, which is the type of song that someone would dedicate to the girl they love before they broke up, aka the perfect start to a movie that I would like to watch. I rated this album overall an 82 out of 100. Shout out Armenia once again.
Shout out.
What is your number 10?
So my number 10 is actually a movie that technically came out last year, but since we're including December of last year, it counts because it's Nosferatu, a gothic horror film written and directed by Robert Eggers, who I think is one of the best directors working today. It stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Bill Skarsgård, and came out December 25th, 2024, which is a great day for a horror movie to come out, Christmas Day. I love it. Now, I'm going to give you a short little spiel about what it's about, and then I'm going to talk about my thoughts. The movie follows Ellen Hutter, played by Lily Rose Depp, as the grotesque vampire Nosferatu, played by Bill Skarsgård, unleashes horror as he goes after her because of his obsession with her. Now, this is a remake of a 1920s horror movie that has been remade before, and it's a movie that Robert Eggers has been wanting to make for forever. I think since he's a kid. So I'm kind of sad to report that this is my least favorite film of his, as someone that loves his work. I still think it's good, and it is a 4 stars, but it does feel weakest to me in terms of its writing, because visually it's amazing, and the performances are beautiful, especially Lily Rose Depp's and Bill Skarsgård. I would not have realized that is Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu. Because not only is he covered by makeup, but he changes his voice, he does everything, and he honestly should have been nominated for an Oscar last year, but he wasn't. And the film should have been nominated for Best Cinematography, but it wasn't. So I do think that those elements are really, really strong, even if I think that it doesn't fully come together. I think that's my biggest issue with it. That being said, it's still a 4, and it's still my number 10. Even though in a stronger year like last year, it would not have made my top 10 and would have just been an honorable mention.
Moving on to number 9. For me, this is Can I Win Just a Little Bit with 3 question marks after it by Landon Conrath. It was independently released September 26th. It is 6 tracks, only 15 minutes long. Ironically, we are starting off my album of the year list with the second EP in a row. Sometimes there are bodies of work that have a true standout song, and for better or for worse, in my opinion, this isn't one of them. The entire EP is incredibly consistent from start to finish. Landon Conrath described it as a snapshot into his mind during a period of depression, and I think he accomplished that perfectly here. The best way I can describe it is that the songs feel upbeat at first glance only, and the more you sit with them, the more depressing they reveal themselves to be. The EP is split between the first 4 tracks, which all have this similar feeling, and the last 2 songs, which are titled as demos. The demos are noticeably slower, stripped back, and it feels like a more serious addendum onto the faux happy veneer that he attempts to hide loosely behind on the first 4 tracks. This EP tells a story, with the climax coming early on in track 2, before we start to get serious about the darker parts. I would recommend this for fans of Floor, Valley, Coin, and pop songwriting hidden within indie music. My favorite song is Space Invader, which I think is a perfect song for walking while getting caught in the rain and thinking this could only happen to me. I also rated this one an 82 out of 100. And to differentiate between the two 82s, I ended up crunching a bunch of different numbers, scoring the songs in different ways, figuring out how I would add them into certain playlists, and then kind of weighting it that way. So rest assured, I did all of my due diligence in making sure that this is ordered in the correct order. And I re-listened to all of these albums as well, like 24 albums I think I had on my short list, which ended up becoming a long list. And then I narrowed it down to the top 10 here.
Meanwhile, I was just like, that looks like a good order.
Vibes only. I like it.
Vibes only. So my number 9, Sorry Baby, which is a black comedy drama written and directed by Eva Victor. It actually also stars Eva Victor, along with Naoma Aki and several others. This movie came out June 27th, 2025, and it follows Agnes, who is played by Eva Victor, as she struggles with depression after being sexually assaulted and finds a cat. I actually heard about this movie from you first, and then I saw it was in theaters, and I went to watch it. I ran to watch it because I was like, I need a good movie, please. And this movie is very good. I thought it was very, very well done, and it does get you. There are several sequences that I think are so beautifully done. The sequence where the actual assault happens, you don't see it. What you see is her entering the house, and then you stay on the house as you see the light change as day goes into night, and then you see her walk out. And I think that's just such a great way of showing that, because obviously you see that she's shaken up coming out of the house. And I think that's such a beautiful approach to showing something so horrific that kind of, I don't know, it's tactful in a way, I guess. I don't know exactly how to describe it. So I think that this film is very, very well done. It is a 4, and ultimately why it is a 4 is because it doesn't stick in my mind that much. I remember coming out of the theater, I was like, wow, that's really good. But if someone was to ask me, what's your favorite film of the year? I would kind of forget about this movie. It has this weird effect where it's like in the moment, it is very powerful, but it kind of doesn't keep me coming back. It doesn't keep my mind on it. And I think that's ultimately why it is a 4 and is at number 9 on my list, because the other films stayed with me more.
Moving on to number 8. My choice is Sable Fable by Bon Iver, released April 11th by Jaguar. It is 13 tracks, 41 minutes and 41 seconds. He's all into numbers having a part in everything, so I had to read the seconds as well because it's 41:41. It's just kind of fun. I will start off by saying I don't think this is Bon Iver's best album, but it may be his/their last. I don't know if Bon Iver is a person or a band. It's both, so they get both pronouns. If this is where the Bon Iver experience actually ends, I do think that this is a good note. It combines the lonely feeling of the first 2 albums with the production and vision of the previous 2 albums. I said Landon Conrath's EP was split into 2 parts, and this album is literally split into 2 parts. There's 2 discs. Disc 1 is Sable, which is an acoustic EP that preceded the album. Then there's also the more positive soul-leaning second part, Fable. Starting with Sable, which has my favorite song. This is the return to form of For Emma Forever Ago, which was his debut album. The songwriting and vocal performance is not only the focus, but also the standout on this part. When this dropped, we had no idea that there would be a full album following it, and it felt like a nice standalone release. After it, the singles from the second side and by extension the full album didn't really capture me at first, but they all worked better in the context of the album. Much like 22 A Million, which we covered on the podcast, this is an album that is difficult to pick a song off of and just listen to that. Every aspect of the album is meant to be experienced together. And on that note, the song I picked out as my favorite from the Fable side is If I Could Only Wait with Danielle Haim. I debated never listening to this song again after it was released as a single, and hearing it on release night in the context of the album, I actually understood it and I liked it. I would recommend this album for fans of soul music, or if you like to listen to what NPR recommends. Overall, my favorite song on the album as a whole is from Sable, and it's called Speyside, and it's a song for someone who is sad from the Midwest, much like Bon Iver's music. I rated this album an 83 out of 100.
My number 8 was a movie that most people think is the best of the year because it was one battle after another, which is a black comedy action thriller film, a lot of genres there, written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Now, I'm going to only list a few people that were in it because there's like 500 bajillion people in this movie. So, in my opinion, the main three are Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and Chase Infinity. And I did misspell Sean Penn as Sean Penn when I was writing my notes. Sorry for that. This film came out September 8th, 2025, and it follows ex-convict in hiding Bob Ferguson, played by Leo DiCaprio, as he goes on the run with his daughter, Willa, played by Chase Infinity, from Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, Sean Penn. And I did like this movie. Now, when I was seeing the trailers for this film throughout the summer, I was like, this is not going to be good because, in my opinion, the trailers were really bad. They did not interest me in this film. So I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, in a way that I did quite like this film. It's a 4 again. Most of my list is 4s, straight up. This is the type of film where I do think that particular sequences of the film are stronger than the film overall. There are 2 or 3 sequences that really stick in my mind. If you've seen the film, you probably know which ones those are. That includes the third act chase sequence. But I do think that ultimately this film does work very well. It does speak to me, partially because I agree with its politics in a lot of ways. But even though I do think that the movie overall is weaker than particular sequences, I think those sequences are so good that it kind of makes the film come together in a way, which I know is kind of a conundrum that doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense in my heart. So that's why it's at number 8 instead of number 9 or 10. Follow your heart, people. Now let's go to number 7.
Number 7 for me is Revenge Seekers by Jane Remover, which is all one word and spelled with a Z at the end. Released April 4th by Dead Air. It is 12 tracks, 49 minutes. Jane Remover is known to be an experimentalist, and this is an experimental album, but it is also surprisingly one note in that experimentalism. But my God, is that one note unique and cool. This is the type of album that I feel like I could fight someone in the street if I was listening to it. If there was ever an album to challenge 100 Gex on how split we are, this might be the one.
Oh, I want to listen to this.
It is hyperpop, digicore, rage, hip-hop, hard dance, and essentially every other EDM genre combined into one giant wall of sound. Much like I said about Bon Iver's album, this is a one-sitting type of experience, and in my opinion, it's hard to choose songs to listen to outside of the context of the album, except for my favorite song. I would recommend this for fans of going insane, drinking 4+ monsters a day, hyperpop, aggressive EDM, and honestly fans of experimental rap and rap kind of in general. My favorite song on this album is JR, 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 which I think partly inspired me to get pissed off every now and then. I rated this album an 84 out of 100.
Sounds like something I should show my coworkers.
Yes, I think everyone will love this. Just kidding. This is probably one of the least accessible albums on here, but I also have number 6, which I will be talking about shortly after your number 7.
So my number 7 is another film that a lot of people loved, and that is Weapons, which is, of course, a mystery horror film written and directed by Zach Cregger. It stars Julie Gardner, Amy Madigan, and again, like a bajillion others. I just gotta say, this year is full of ensemble films, and I am here for it because I love ensemble films. They are so much fun. This movie came out August 8th, 2025, and it follows several characters as they deal with the mysterious disappearance of 17 children, all from the same class. Now, a lot of people will love this film. I agree, it is very good. It's not, again, not 5 stars, but I do really enjoy this film. It's my first Zach Krieger's movie. I haven't seen Barbarian, which I know a lot of people also loved, so I can't compare it to that, but I do love the way that it blends horror and comedy. It made me laugh out loud a bunch of times while also making me quite scared in sequences. Although I slept fine, don't worry. And yeah, it's a 4. Ultimately, it's not higher just because I think it's just like a fun movie. It doesn't like hit me very deep or anything like that, which is ultimately what I am kind of looking for in a film. But it's just entertaining and a great time. And that's kind of amazing. Like, I think those films need to also be made. And I gotta say, I love Amy Madigan as, spoiler alert, the witch, who is the person responsible for the kids disappearing. And I think she should be nominated for an Academy Award because she is just so much fun in this film and really freaky looking with her makeup. So yeah, that's why it's number 7. It's just a really fun film.
Number 6 is Willow B. Tucker, I'll Always Love You by Ethel Cain. It was released August 8th by Daughters of Cain Records, which is her record label, and AWOL. It is 10 tracks, 1 hour and 13 minutes.
Damn.
This may be the most inaccessible album on here because of its pace, although Jane Remover is probably too insane for many. But ironically, this is probably the most accessible Ethel Cain album. The shortest song on here is 4 minutes and 44 seconds and is entirely instrumental. And the longest on here is 15 minutes and 15 seconds. So if that sounds like your thing, I would recommend this album. Ethel Cain might be the greatest example of Southern Gothic in music that I've ever heard, and her perspective and subject matter are so unique among musicians of her level of popularity. I've heard her described as what Lana Del Rey thinks she is, and honestly, that is the best comparison that I've ever heard. Where Lana Del Rey can be surface level, this album and Ethel Cain as a whole is some of the most intense storytelling that I've heard all year. This is the album that I would be most curious about hearing your thoughts on, because I think it could be the one to challenge you to like longer songs.
I'm intrigued.
I would recommend this for self-aware fans of Lana Del Rey that think they can handle something more intense, fans of Southern Gothic and Gothic themes in general, poor white people, rich white people who like to cosplay as poor white people, fans of literature, fans of concept albums, and people who want to have an experience with music instead of just listening to it. My favorite song is Dust Bowl, which is a testament to patience. I believe it's over 6.5 minutes long.
Damn.
And I rated this album an 85 out of 100.
Can I ask, is this the longest album on your top 10?
This is the longest album on my top 10 by length. Technically, the Midnight's album is longer, but it's not really on my top 10. But also, I'd like to point out that is 17 tracks. This one is 10 tracks and is an hour and 13 minutes. And that one is 14 minutes longer plus 7 additional songs. So kind of the length of some of these songs is insane. And this is one, like, you cannot listen to most of these songs outside of the album, but listening to the album in one sitting is a beautiful experience. And this has been very fun and very inspiring for me because I've been like, wow, what if I make long songs? That's what I've been trying to do recently. What is your number 6?
Frankenstein, specifically Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is another Gothic science fiction film. When I say another, I mean the Gothic part. This is, at this point, the second film on my list that has Gothic as one of its genres, and it's not the last. So it shows you how much I love, Gothic stuff.
You might love this album that I just talked about as well, because it is Gothic. So
okay, I really want to listen to it now. After what you talked about and the fact that it's Gothic, I have to listen to it. We got to do it soon. I'm very intrigued. But yeah, so Frankenstein is written and directed by Guillermo del Toro and stars Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi. It came out in theaters, and the reason why I'm saying that is because this is a Netflix movie, but it came out in theaters October 17th, 2025 for a limited release. I got lucky enough to watch it at the Egyptian theaters, which was a great experience, which for those of you who don't know is an old theater that Netflix bought on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And the movie, for those of you who for some reason live under a rock and don't know the story of Frankenstein, follows Oscar Isaac as Frankenstein as he reanimates a corpse that becomes a creature played by Jacob Elordi. And of course, this experiment has violent repercussions. Now, I adore Frankenstein, the book. It's one of my favorite Gothic books of all time. Actually, no, sorry. It's my favorite Gothic book of all time. Mary Shelley is an amazing author. I read it in high school and I loved it right away. And it's very sad to me that the book has kind of been like shit on whenever it's adapted. Because if you watch the original like 30s version, it ain't anything like the freaking book. Because in the book, it's actually about nature versus nurture. It's about how people aren't born like bad. They become bad because of the way that they're treated, which is kind of the creature's story. And in the 1930s version, it's literally like, oh, we put the brain of a murderer in the creature, so that's why he's bad. That's literally the only reason. So I had my fingers crossed going into this, especially because Guillermo del Toro was directing this. And I'm happy to report that it does have like the nuance of the book, which makes me so happy. On top of that, it's an absolutely beautiful film. Now, the reason it is number 6 and the reason why it is a 4 stars is because I think that the first half of the film, which kind of tells Frankenstein's version of events, is a lot weaker. I had some issues with the storytelling aspects of it. That being said, ultimately the film does work for me because the second half is honestly amazing. And a large part of that is because of Jacob Elordi. He gave the performance of a lifetime in this film. And I think that if anyone that's kind of like, oh, Jacob Elordi, watch this film and you will see like it will change your mind on him as an actor. Just don't go and watch Wuthering Heights because then that might make you change your mind back. So yeah, really the second half is why this film works so well for me. I wish the first half was stronger, but ultimately Jacob Elordi, the beauty of this film, and a large part of that for me comes from the fact that it's like Gothic beauty, and the strength of the second half really like pull this through for me. Place at number 6. If you like Frankenstein and if you love Gothic anything, go watch this film now.
Album number 5 for me is K1 by K-Mo, released June 6th on Dead Air. 12 tracks, 34 minutes. So we're kind of the complete opposite of the Ethel Cain album that came before. This is an album that I didn't know I needed when it first came out. Each good album I listen to tells me something different through the listening experience, and this was one where I knew there were little parts that I was missing. It would come to love if I listened to it enough times, and I was right. This album got better on every subsequent listen and is still growing on me to the point where 2 other songs on here could become 5s the more I listen.
Oh, wow.
This album sits somewhere at the juncture of hyperpop, garage rock, future bass, and the idea that the guitar is a good instrument. I can't really find the words to describe what this album sounds like or honestly is. It captures the sincerity of an indie album, the playfulness of hyperpop, the melodic structure of future bass, and the complexity of what I would call one of the most exciting artists of the 21st century. I would recommend this for fans of the record label Bitbird and people who are fans of production over everything else. My favorite song is Do I Keep You Up, which is a perfect 5. I rated this album an 87 out of 100. And from now on, each subsequent album is going to have a perfect 5 on it.
That is exciting.
And with that, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is a movie that I'm sure a lot of people have in their top 10s. It's Sinners, which is, of course, a horror film directed and written by Ryan Coogler. I should say it's a period horror film. It stars Michael B. Jordan, Miles Caton, Jack O'Connell, and like a bajillion others. This is also an ensemble film. A lot of people also joke that since Michael B. Jordan plays twins, it stars Michael B. and Michael C. Jordan, which I do like. It was released April 18th, 2025. And as I said, it follows the Smokestack twins, played by Michael B. Jordan, as they return to their hometown on the Mississippi Delta in order to open a gin joint. But on their opening night, a sinister stranger approaches, which is, of course, a vampire. It's a vampire movie. Now, a lot of people absolutely adore this film, and I can absolutely see why. I have my issues with it because I think that the second half is weaker, mainly because it's kind of over so fast. Like all the vampire stuff, it's built up and then it kind of just happens and ends really fast. I wanted it to last longer, specifically the vampire part, but the first half is so strong and all the period stuff works so well. On top of that, this movie has the best soundtrack of the year, hands down. And I listen to the soundtrack like on a monthly basis, pretty much. So ultimately, those things I think really do come together, even if I do think the second half is weaker. And it is a film that I do really, really like. Like I would rewatch this film. It's still out of 4, but it, there's a reason why this is my number 5 and not my number 10. I think this does work really, really well, even if I do wish that some parts of it didn't kind of happen so fast.
Number 4 for me is Digital Notes by Noted, released March 14th by EMI Sweden. This is another EP, 6 tracks, 14 minutes, very, very fast. Sometimes you need an incredibly consistent collection of dance pop music, and that's what this is. This EP is a combination of the best parts of 2010's pop melody and structure, with some of my favorite electronic production. These guys are incredibly consistent, and all the songs feel spiritually connected, despite featuring 6 different female vocalists across the 6 tracks. If you've listened to this podcast long enough, you will have realized that melody is what I care about over everything else, and that's what this EP delivers. Have you ever heard some incredible dance music and thought, what if we put the best pop songwriting over it? Well, you don't have to wonder anymore because, my God, the Swedes have done it again. The songs are a combination of 2000's love songs, 2010's melodies, and 2020's production, taking the best parts of each and combining them into something that stands above all other dance pop that I've heard this year. If you're a fan of EDM and or pop, do yourself a favor and listen to this EP. My favorite song is WIFI with Mercer Henderson, which was in my top 5 most played songs this year.
That's right.
And I should also mention, because I forgot to, Do I Keep You Up by Kamo was my favorite song from his album, and that was also in my top 5 most streamed songs this year, so, pretty good. But Wi-Fi, or When I Find It, is a perfect 5, and it might be the catchiest pop song of the year. I rated this EP an 89 out of 100. What was your number 4?
Starting with this movie, we are entering the area where I don't have any overarching problems with these films, kind of the way I had it before. So at this point, it's kind of like, okay, I would not change anything about these films. That being said, we do still have a couple more 4s, but they're very, very high 4s. Because my number 4 film is Companion, which is a science fiction thriller film written and directed by Drew Hancock. It stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, who is one of the good Nepo babies. I will say it. And it was released January 31st, 2025. It follows Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid as a couple, Iris and Josh, as they join their friends on a weekend getaway at a remote cabin, only for the weekend to unravel into chaos after it's revealed that one of the guests is a companion robot. Now, I missed this movie in theaters initially, but then I watched it on streaming, and it was so good. It was very different from what I thought it was going to be based on the trailers. I thought it was going to be more of a horror film, but it is much more of a thriller film. It just works so well. I think it's a great way of looking at themes of ownership of your own body, of the way that, women's bodies are commodified, stuff like that. I think it's done very well, while also, giving you a very fun, thriller film. I think this is the type of films that we're kind of missing in terms of mid-budget films that kind of make you think while also just give you a great time, either at the movie theater or at home. I am very happy that I saw this on streaming, and honestly very sad that I missed it in theaters, because I feel like this would have made a great experience in the theater. I don't have any issues with this film. It's just a really great film, and it's very close to 4.5 for me. Now on to your number 3.
The long prophesized, the long awaited Glassjaw by Aries, released November 14th by Wonderworld. It is 12 tracks, 31 minutes. This was my most anticipated album of the year, and it was worth the wait. This album is an expansion of Aries' style, which exists somewhere between alt-pop, R&B, and rap in a genre that I would call Southern California music. This album combines tiny moments of sun against the backdrop of the end of a long-term relationship and loss of control and sense of self. It's a lot darker and more introspective than I was expecting, and I think it's a great album to listen to during winter in California. The album opens with 3 explicitly hip-hop songs, which serve as a look at Aries' mental state and the face that he puts on to get through the dark moments, a peek behind the glass if you want to get cute with it. Track number 4, Wichita Blues, is one of the best songs of his career and is an autobiography about leaving the Midwest for Southern California and getting addicted to weed. This is where we start to see explicit rock influence on the album, which comes back later. Tracks 4 through 7 are my absolute favorites, with all being 4.5s and my favorite, which is a 5, and I will mention shortly. We see influences brought in from country, punk, trap, and pop rap throughout the rest of the album to create this giant mashup of genres that I can't even describe. One of the last lyrics on the album is, "I hope my absence brings you the peace I never will." So if that sounds like the vibe that you want to bring to the function, I would suggest giving it a listen. I would recommend this for fans of what I described as Southern California music, fans of the artists Keshi and Breakins, who both make appearances on the album, people who have lived in both the Midwest and Southern California, fans of modern music with the ethos of 2000s emo, fans of albums that flow together and feel like one cohesive experience, and people with bad attention spans, because this album is quite short for being 12 songs. I also think that this is a great album for walking. My favorite song is Miss You the Worst, which is a perfect 5, and is a beautiful love song written for his cat. I rated this album an 89 out of 100. This is the one that I wish would have come out a little bit earlier in the year, because I think I maybe would have rated it higher, but I don't know. I'm going to keep listening to it, and it's been my most played album of November. The 12 songs from the album were all in my top 13 songs of the month on Spotify. I don't remember what the other one that was thrown in there was, but yeah, so that kind of tells you how much I like this album and how much I like listening to it front to back. So, highly recommend. Big fan. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is actually a very unexpected surprise for me, because it's the movie The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which I was not expecting to like so much. It's an animated science fiction comedy film directed by Pete Braungart. I was going to include all the writers, but there are like 15 different people. So if you want to see who wrote it, look it up. It stars the voices of Eric Bauza and Candy Milo, amongst others, and was released March 14th, 2025. It follows Daffy Duck and Porky Pig as they try to save the Earth from the invaders' gum-chewing-based scheme. I was not expecting to like this so much. Like, I did not think this was going to be number 3. And obviously, if this was a stronger, it would be like number 9 or 10 or something, but it would still be in my top 10 because it is so good. It's the type of like kids movie that I wish was made because it was actually funny, like actually really funny. And they had some adult jokes, which I really appreciated. Like, it had this one adult joke that I'm not going to ruin, but it genuinely took me by surprise that they went there. If you watch the film, you know what I mean. And it actually made me laugh. It actually worked. Overall, that's kind of this whole film. It feels like a breath of fresh air, and it generally works as both a kids movie and a comedy. In some ways, it kind of feels more like an adult movie because a lot of the jokes will fly over your kids' heads, but it will still work because it's just such a fun time. And I wish that Warner Brothers was making animated films like this, because this is one of the films that they kind of offloaded and sold to Catch Up Entertainment. And that makes me sad because I'm like, hey, if they release this and actually like try to make it a success, it would be. And I feel like a lot more people would realize how good this film actually is. So, hey, Warner Brothers, start making more animated movies like this, please. And I can't wait for Coyote versus Acme next year. This is a very, very high 4 for me. Very close to 4.5.
That might be the biggest surprise of your entire list.
Yes. Genuinely such a surprise for me. I did not expect it to be so good.
Well, continuing the theme of a surprise. 01 by Now Now, released October 29th by Mood Ring Records, which I believe is their own independent label. This was a surprise release. I didn't know this was coming out, and they teased it a few days before. I talked about it on the podcast. It is 4 tracks, 15 minutes. This is the shortest EP that's on here. 4 tracks. And I did not think that it could reach number 2, but oh my God, it can. A mere 7.5 years after their last project, Now returns with a transcendent 4-song EP that includes one of the best songs of their career. I found them a few months after the release of their album Saved in 2018, and this is the first project that I have experienced being released since I've been a fan of them for the past 7 years.
That's crazy, genuinely.
Since there are only 4 songs on here, I'm going to do a track by track real quick. Track 1 is Talk to God, which feels like a continuation of their last album Saved, but somehow more sad. It slowly meanders along, letting you sit in every moment in line. This is a pop rock song through the lens of both of those genres' indie counterparts. If you like big rock drums, crispy guitars, and sitting in silence, this is for you. Track number 2 is called Isn't It Funny, and it feels like a futuristic idea of what funk music would sound like, filtered through their brand of alt pop. Track number 3 is About You, a song that feels like begging to move on from the past, but only becoming more stuck in it. This one, much like track 2, features a funky bass line, but this one feels darker and more hopeless. The final track, Spec, is one of the best songs I've ever heard, period. That's about all I can say about it because I can't do it justice. I would recommend this EP for fans of the winter, people who take a long time to get over their exes, and fans of indie music that's built over synthesizers. My favorite song is, of course, Spec, which is a perfect 5, and is probably in the top 3 songs of the decade of the 2020s.
Wow,
it is incredible.
That's crazy.
I rated this EP a 90 out of 100. This is actually a 4.5. Many albums on here are close to a 4.5, and I rated some of them a 4.5. This one actually is. This is really good.
I think it's perfect that your number 2 is a 4.5 because so is mine. My first 4.5. And Brandon, you are so lucky that this is not my number 1 film. Say thank you to Rian Johnson, not to spoil what my number 1 is, because I know that you absolutely hated this movie because it's Friendship.
I did hate this movie.
It's Friendship, which is a black comedy film directed and written by Andrew DeYoung, who, if you don't know him, he worked on Pen 15, which is an amazing series. Everyone should go watch it. It stars Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd and was released in theaters May 9th, 2025. It follows Tim Robinson's Craig Waterman as he spirals out of control after Paul Rudd's Austin ends their short-lived bromance friendship. Now, this movie I actually saw for the first time last year because I went with friend of the podcast, Dante, to a preview of it where we gave our thoughts, and they changed it because of our thoughts. Then, of course, like a bunch of other people's. But this film is hilarious. I love this type of humor. It's very much cringe humor, which I will say I don't like always feel like watching. It's a type of humor that I have to feel in the mood for, but when I'm in the mood, I love it. And this film is probably like one of the best examples of it. It has me rolling the whole time. A large part of that is Tim Robinson, who is amazing. I love his sketches. I can't wait to watch his new show, The Chair Company, on HBO, because I've heard that's also amazing. This is right up my alley. I think it's hilarious, especially as someone that also loves stories about like friendships falling apart. So this is a 4.5. I adore it. It was my top movie of the year for like 6 months before my actual top movie came out. And that whole time Brandon was like, please, something else come out that's actually really good, because I know how much you hated this movie.
Yeah, I rated this movie a 2 out of 5, and that is even generous. I think this is a hilarious movie. I think there are so many great jokes in this movie. The problem is there's no story, in my opinion. And that's my problem. Like I've talked about a lot of the time, the story is so weak and almost non-existent at times that it just isn't, like, I just hated it so much. We watched this together, our whole friend group, before I left California, and I was the only one who didn't like it.
This was the last thing we did.
Yes, this is the last thing we did. And it was interesting. I will say that. It is very cringeworthy. Yes. But yes, I am very thankful that that is not your number 1. But what is our number 1s?
Let's do it.
My number 1 of the year, the long-awaited Never Always by the band Camino.
Hell yes.
Released July 25th by Atlantic Records. 11 tracks with a 35-minute runtime. I have one song on here that is rated a perfect 5. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, because David, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is, of course, Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out story, which I don't think is a part of the official title, but I'll throw it out there, which is, of course, written and directed by Rian Johnson.
And that's all we're giving you, because this is our other surprise for you, our other present.
That's right.
We had to do something special for our number one movie and album. So what better thing to do than to watch them and listen to them over the next week and come back next week so you can hear what we think about them, because boy, do we have thoughts.
A lot of thoughts.
And that's basically it. That's our top 10.
That's right.
If you want to look in depth at our top 10, you can go on our Instagram. We both made posts about all of the movies and albums that made it in, and you can scroll through there. You can share it with your friends. If you don't trust what Pitchfork or Rolling Stone has to say for music, or I don't know, Variety, I guess, has to say for movies.
Deadline,
I don't know if they're the leading one. IMDb, I don't know.
Something like that.
But if you don't trust the major publications and you like our opinions better, feel free to share it. Tell your friends, tell your family, listen and watch all of the things that we've said, because we stand by our rankings. I can't believe it's taken this long for me to say that David is once again wearing the You're Killing Me Smalls shirt today.
Yes, I wore it specifically for this episode.
Yes, because today is a new day. Since we were recording the episode that just came out about an hour ago, we just had to run it back. I'm wearing the same flannel that I was wearing when we recorded that episode too, just to make it lucky. You know, we got to make sure that the episode is going to go well, and I think it did.
If you guys are like, wow, you guys are amazing for releasing this very special bonus episode, you guys should go and rate our show, our podcast on Spotify. Give us a review on Apple Music to show your appreciation. And if you want to tell us how great this episode was, or how you might disagree with our top 10 lists, you can always email us at upcpod@gmail.com.
Yes. What are your top 10 lists? Tell us what you think.
Exactly.
Tell us if you agree, disagree. If every single thing that we said was wrong, according to you, let us know. We want to hear from you.
That's right.
Because that's part of what makes art so fun, is that everyone is going to have their own interpretation, as evidenced by David's number 2 movie, which I could not stand.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure I can almost guarantee that if we listen to the Jane Remover album, you would hate it.
I'm pretty sure.
Because it is more abrasive than 100 Gex.
It would be
somehow.
like a 0.5.
Literally, I think there's a chance that album would be a 1 for you.
Damn.
But, you know, maybe we'll have to do it next year. And I think that's the most important thing, is that all of these albums and movies that we talked about are not off limits for future episodes. So if you want to hear us talk in depth about one of these movies, one of these albums, maybe multiple, email us as well, because we are open to suggestions if you think that one of these sounds particularly better than the rest. And on that note, for our actual in-depth ratings, reviews, thoughts on our number 1 picks, we will see you next week.